my name is Phil Hamill. Excuse me. I was born October the 20th, 1924, Omaha, Nebraska. At, what name of the hospital was I think Nicholasson. I was born at a Jewish hospital. I can't remember the name of it now.
Wise Memorial?
Wise Memorial, that's it. It was started with a bunch of Jewish doctors that didn't feel they were getting a good break at some of the other hospitals in town. They didn't last for a few years, and that hospital went broke. But my earliest memory is my Zeta and Boba's house on Benny Street. Not Benny, Blondo. 2519 Blondo. And for a while we lived in 26 in Blondo, 2610 or 2612. And I think my dad had a grocery store in South Omaha someplace at that time. I never was there, I was pretty young. But next door to us lived Bess and what was those people's names? There was a whole bunch of kids there. No. Anyway, I'll get back to that. They, we played in the backyard with them all the time, and they were older than me, but they had some younger kids too that were younger than me. But I remember being at the grandfather's and grandmother's house, and it was a large house, I thought at the time, because it had 2-story. I had never lived in a 2-story house, but going over there and visiting I thought it was a big house. And all the sisters, my mother, and Mem Aleka, Mem Ida. No, I don't think Ida so much. She was busy with her kids and her husband, but Aleka and Ida, and my mother, and Esther, I think they went over to that house every day of the week. And the kids, I remember Albert, he was a little bit older than me, and he had a bottle. I took the bottle away from him. I remember snatching the bottle away from him. And I remember Harry. I think Harry was old enough from cousin Harry, and that's about all I remember at that particular time. But Zeta had a barn in the back. He had a horse, and a little green wagon, and he made a living delivering bread. A little guy, a little goatee, a little beard, and very pious, very religious, and which I never grew up to be that way. If he'd been around, probably we would all have been more religious than we were. I think, if I remember right, Uncle Morris built a porch for the Zeta there. He put windows and doors around it. It was an open porch. And Uncle Morris was a real good guy with his hands. He could do practically anything. And across the street, Ben Miller and his sisters lived over there, and I used to play over there. They had a big wood pile in the back of the house. Mr. Miller was we call him a wood turner, but he actually was an artist. People would bring chairs or legs or tables to him, and he could duplicate a broken leg. And he was quite an artist. And he was a cigar smoker and a pipe, and kind of vicious, mean, and yelling at everybody all the time. But Ben's mother was great. She used to bake cookies and bring them out in the backyard, all the kids. And I got a little bit older, and my dad had a store on 24th and Douglas. The building was a 3-story building, wood, I guess you'd call it a tenement really type. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 entrances and a basement area. He was in a corner at a grocery store. It was maybe 25 feet wide, 50 feet long, had a back door to the alley. And it was really a compact little store. And my mother I don't know if you remember Fanny. We had a babysitter actually named Fanny. They really called her Michigan Fanny, Crazy Fanny. And she'd come every day because Maury and Eddie were little. And I was older, so I know I must have went to school I don't remember too well about that. But she'd take care of the kids. My mother would go down to the store every day. She never worked. She'd sit by the telephone and watch everything. And somebody come in and wanted credit, she'd holler in Yiddish to my dad, "Waarvan we dat?" No credit, because he was an easy touch. Yeah, my dad was quite a guy, I thought. He was in the First World War. He got gas, and he never had real good health. But he was kind of a type of guy you could talk to. And I remember when I was in the Army overseas, and I kept getting letters that he was ill. So I wrote home, I said, well, I probably could get a discharge and come home because there's nobody else to make a living there. I was sending home an allotment, but they didn't have a lot of money. And he wrote me back, no, he said, you stay there and do your duty. And I have great memories of him. My mother was a little hazier in my mind. She was a martinet. She was tough, and worked no nonsense. I could tell you that. Today, I guess she'd be like Mrs. Blumpkin. If she'd been living, she probably would have had 20 grocery stores. She was pretty tough and pushy. The rest of her sisters weren't like that. Maybe Ida was a little bit like that, but the rest of them weren't like that. Oh gosh, I don't know.
Do you have much memory of Izzy and Joe Hornstein growing up?
Yeah, when we lived up on 33rd Street, we lived next door to them. And I was kind of a pest, I suppose. They were older, they were dating, and they didn't want to be bothered with it. But I was always on their case. Before that, I can remember once when for some reason I was spent the night over at their house, and they lived at that time on behind the store on 33rd Street. There was a house facing Parker Street, which was the first or second house in the corner before they bought the house on 33rd Street. And for some reason I was there for overnight. And I slept with Joe. I must have wet the bed or something, because 20 years later he told me about it. And yeah, Izzy was a great guy. He could play the piano real well, and he was always joking. He smoked a pipe, and then he went away to college. He had a motorcycle, and he rode that all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia. He went to school at Georgia Tech. He'd come home, not every semester, because he worked a lot of time getting through school. And with the one year he came back, he was ready to graduate, and his mother was raising hell about that motorcycle, so he sold it to some guy in the neighborhood. Guy got killed the next week on that motorcycle. Talking about motorcycles, I don't know if Maury remembers now, but we got a hold of a motorcycle with no motor in it. And we used to push it and run down the hill with it. I don't think he probably remembers that. But the cops came and we got rid of that. Then I talked my dad into buying me a BB gun once. And I don't know if the Nachmans were living with us then or not. Were you guys living with us then? Yeah? And I was a pretty good shot with that. I'd sit in the garage with a broken window and I'd shoot out the window and hit the girls with their bare legs. And I got in trouble. I was just pinging one day and I hit the ground, bounced up, hit Bernstein's grocery store window, and shattered the whole damn window. And it cost my dad about $30, I think. So that was the end of that BB gun. Gosh, those were good days, actually. Let's see.
What schools did you go to, Phil?
Well, I went to Central Grade School, which at that time was right across from Central High. It's torn down now. But there's a monument there. There's a plaque and a monument saying that the school had been there at one time. I think Northern Natural built their building on that location, right across from Jocelyn Memorial. And it's an old-fashioned school. And I went there to the 5th grade. think in 5th grade, yeah. Then when we moved that time to the 33rd Street, I went to Franklin Grade School, which was a revelation that everybody could speak English. It was an interesting school. But I had missed something somewhere in arithmetic, and I was having a devil of a time with fractions. I can remember that, which I should have had in the 3rd or 4th grade, I guess. And this one teacher, I can't remember her name. She worked pretty good with me. I finally got it. And then I went to, after I got out there, I went to Tech High. I started at Tech High in 1938. I got out in 1946. Only took 8 years to get out of there. Of course, in between, I was in the Army for 3.5 years. So when I came back, I went and got my diploma, and I graduated the class of 46. Al Sellner, Slick Sellner was in that class. I saw him a couple of weeks later after that. He says, "They called your name at the graduation." I said, "Well," I said, "It only took me 8 years to get my diploma." Oh, let's see, what else?
Phil, do you remember downstairs from where your grocery store was on 24th? There was a little ice cream stand there, wasn't there?
It was up on the sidewalk next door. There's a guy named George. He was a Greek guy. He had ice cream, and he sold candy, and he had apples, and how the guy made a living, I don't know, but he did. That house we lived in there above the store, every room had a fireplace, because it was built back in the 1880s when there was no central heating. So each room had either a stove or a fireplace. And the plumbing in there was horrible. We had flush toilets. You had to reach up and pull the chain to flush the toilet. It didn't work good all the time. Because there was no pressure to get the water back up in the tank. It was an interesting time. And I remember I had diphtheria there. And them days they quarantined the house. So my mother and Eddie and Maury and I were quarantined out. My dad couldn't get in or out. But he had a way of getting through the basement. He came up to the house anyway. And after I don't know, my dad must have made a few bucks or something, because we moved over to grocery store up to 2562 Douglas Street. And the building was brand new. And that was the first time I ever seen an iron fireman, coal furnace. You load up a duct or something full of coal, and the machine will automatically put the coal in the furnace. It was quite a deal. But a nice little grocery store, and it was going along real good. And we moved from there right across the street from where we lived at to the Hamilton Terrace, which was adjacent to the Hamilton Hotel. We lived up on the 3rd floor, which was a mistake, because my mother was pretty heavy, and then walk up and down those steps was murder. Eddie was a baby. And I don't know how long we lived there, maybe 2 years. Then the house next door to Uncle Kiva and Aunt Ida became vacant. And my dad went out and bought the house. We moved out there right next door to him, which I don't know why. I think it was a mistake. I don't think my aunt was too happy about that. I used to drive her pretty cuckoo. And I go there and I knock on the door, and she'd turn the curtain back. She says, "Get back, nobody's home." I said, "I want a cookie. Get back, nobody's here." She was a character, really. But then my mother died at that time. And well, I don't know, things seemed to kind of go bad to worse as far as my dad and his health and his store. And he had to close his store up on Douglas Street. A lot of people owed a lot of money, a lot of people on the books. You know, I don't know how much money it was, probably $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000, whatever it was. In those days, a lot of money. I don't think he ever collected very much of it. And that's when we moved. And when we were living on 33rd, that's when Nachman moved in with us, I think. Everybody was doubled up in those days. It was tough times and trying to make a living. And I don't remember too much of that, really. I know Aunt Lincoln was so great to us. But it was pretty tough on her, too, looking back. Trying to take care of all them mouths and feed everybody.
You know, I often think about that, Phil, and think that there was 9 of us living in probably a little 2-bedroom house, you know, wasn't very big.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
It had one bathroom. And upstairs was like an apartment. My dad had fixed that up. He was renting it out to a guy named Carl Bear. He was a cookie salesman he knew. And he moved in and they got married. And the gal he married must have been an ex-prostitute or something, because she was a real Lulu. My folks were arguing like hell about her, because she had a cat and she smoked, and my mother thought the world's coming to an end. And she made her move. So we had that apartment upstairs. I don't know where you guys sleep up there?
You know, I don't remember what the sleeping arrangement, but you think about it, 9 people, and I don't know where they put everybody.
Tiny house. The upstairs shouldn't have been an upstairs. It was an attic, actually. Built it in an attic. Then I'm skipping around here.
When you went into the service, where did you go?
Well, let's see. I enlisted in June, and I couldn't leave till I wasn't 18. So I had to wait till October for my birthday. And it shipped me down to Fort Leavenworth. Sells twins, Norman and Ed Sells, joined the same time I did. We all joined the Air Corps. In fact, I joined in the Navy originally. The 3 of us all went down one day and joined the Navy. Well, they flunked out. So I wasn't going to go by myself, so I did. I told the guy to tear up the papers on the gun. And we went and joined the Air Corps. We all passed that. And they could leave right away, but they decided to wait till I could go. So we all went to Fort Leavenworth first, and going through the line getting our clothes. There was a guy handing out clothes. I used to go to school with Harold Bogus. He was a colored kid. He used to go to Franklin Grade School. He had a smile, great big smile. And he had a great job. He wasn't going to be shipped overseas or nothing there. So we got our clothes and our shoes, and, you know, 2 pair of brand new shoes. What a great country this is. And then from there we got shipped down to St. Petersburg, Florida. And put us up in the hotels there. It was a beautiful place down in the beach. I've been back several times there since, but at that time there wasn't such. They stripped everything out of the hotel, and they had bunk beds in there, and we all put 8 guys in the room. Should have been only 2 people. But anyway, it was all right. If you goofed up, I was on the 6th or 7th floor. No elevator. You had to walk up and walk down 15 times a day. So we finally got down there, and they started drilling. We marched in the sand. Oh, it was terrific. It was really tough. I think it was 13 or 14 weeks. Their basic training, infantry training, actually. And from there I was sent to Memphis, Tennessee. No, I'll take it back. From there I went to Boca Raton, Florida. From St. Petersburg Basic, I went to Radio Gunnery School, Boca Raton, Florida. There I learned the code and how to send Morse code, da-da-da, and aerial gunnery school, which I never did go to. I didn't finish that. For some reason, they found out I could type on my 502 form, and so they sent me to 502, it was actually 502 school, where you learn how to run a orderly room. But I think I was there 4 weeks at Boca. Then I went to Memphis, Tennessee, 26, what am I trying to think, the name of the group, it's 26, anyway, it was a flight, our job was to deliver airplanes to different spots around the world, actually. And I wasn't on the flight crew, so I worked in the orderly room there. And the first month I was there, I made PFC, a $10 a month raise. And I got along real good there in the orderly room there. And it was a new outfit, so they had a lot of openings to fill. About 3 months later, I made sergeant. I thought I had the world by the butt, you know. And I stayed there for 18 months. And I guess it must have had a directive sent down that people in that long shouldn't stay that long in the group unless it was. So anyway, I got sent to Lowry Field, Denver, Colorado. And there I took basic life-saving, not life-saving, but basic how to take care of yourself if you got forced down on an airplane. Because I was being sent to Alaska. I don't know what this had to do with basic survival type training. So I found out later, flying over the Canadian Rockies and into Canada, they sent us up to from Lowry Field, we went up to Idaho Falls. There's an old ski camp up there, and they taught us survival training, how to make a tent out of a parachute silk, and how to make a fire, and how to kill rabbits, which I never did. And after that survival training, I went to Canada. I was at first I went to Great Falls, Montana. I was there 2 months till it was a rotation deal up in Fairbanks. And then from there I went to Fairbanks, Alaska. Got off the airplane. There was Stanley Sherman, Harold Sherman's brother. I don't know if you remember the Shermans. He's up and waiting for me. I wasn't rotated with him, but he'd see my name on the orders. So I never got a chance to spend much time with him. After, I think about 30 days, he was shipped off someplace else. I spent a wonderful 2 years in Fairbanks, Alaska. The ice box of the world. Not like it is today with those cruises people take up there. When I first got there, we lived in Nissen huts, which you have to keep a fire going all the time, otherwise you really freeze your butt off. And then I got sent to, I made staff sergeant there. And then I got sent to base camp 50 miles from Fairbanks. We had an emergency landing field. We had to keep it open all the time in case planes couldn't land at the main base, they could land there. That today is known as Elmendorf. I think it's one of the largest air bases in the world. When I was there, it was nothing. We had 50 guys there. And I was acting first sergeant. And I was in charge of the motor pool. Imagine me in charge of the motor pool. I could know how to start a car for me. But we had a good time there. We had movies, and we slept in the hangar. They had built a big, immense hangar there, and they never used it. But upstairs, they had rooms up there we made into like a barracks. I had my own room up there. It was great. And the war was over with. I came home. Then what? I was home about 2 weeks. My dad died. It was a shock. I don't know. Then I got married.
What were you doing at that time, Phil? as far as work is concerned?
When I first came home from the Army, uh, Joe called me up, Joe Hornstein. And he's bought this furniture store up on Leavenworth Street, Millman Furniture. And he wanted me to come to work for him. But he said, I want you to learn the furniture business in the right way. So the right way was to work on a truck, which was murder, delivering refrigerators and hide-a-beds. And of course I was younger and a lot stronger in them days. And I worked on a truck for about 6 months, and then weekends I'd work in the store, waiting on customers. And finally, little by little, I got it working entirely in the store. And Joe's brother-in-law and his father-in-law, Mapers, had a store downtown, got burned out. So they moved up on Leavenworth Street, took over our warehouse, and made a warehouse outlet, they called it. They couldn't use their own name because of the insurance situation. So they came in business up there, and of course, Joe and him didn't get along too well. So he sent me down there because they opened up a furniture part too. He sent me down there to protect his interests because they were finagling around with the inventory. But anyway, make a long story short, I worked there for I guess about 8 years. And we had rusted windows on our house on Northwest Drive. And one of the screens got broke, so I took it down to Nicklin to get it fixed. And when I was there, I met Joe Gus, and we were talking. He says, why don't you come to work for me? Which I should have done 10 years before I did, because I started making a lot more money right away. I stayed there 40 years. Can I stop for a minute? I just saw something else. I can remember back on 33rd Street when Maury and Eddie were little, and I was the cock of the walk. I thought I was a big time operator. And Maury done something. I kind of cuffed him around a little bit. And Joe, who wasn't married yet, lived next door. He came home, and Maury runs up and says, "Phil hit me." So he chased after he catches me, gives me 4 good whaps and a kick in the butt. I turn around at him and I said, "You dirty SOB, when I get the bill, I'm going to kick that you know what out of you." 20 years later, he tells me about it. He said, "You're still not mad, are you?" I says, "No." And going back to living on 24th Street, I don't know how the hell I got by with everything I got by with, but my mother, to get rid of us guys, give us 20 cents or a piece, whatever, send us over to the Muse Theater. Just get out of her hair. So I schlepped Maury and some other shaggets from the neighborhood there. We went there one night, and we were sitting through and watching, I don't know what kind of movie it was. And Maury was sleeping already, and so the kids said, "We're going home." I said, "Go ahead, I'm going to watch another movie." I fell asleep. I woke up 3 o'clock in the morning in the theater all by myself. The place was closed up, and they'd walked out and left me sleeping there. And I couldn't get out. The front door was locked, and the popcorn machine, and so I got myself some popcorn. I was eating popcorn. I finally thought, well, I'll go out the back. I went to the back door out into the alley at the Muse Theater there. And there was a cop out there with a flashlight. They were looking for me. Uncle Kiva was over at the house. I guess my dad must have called him. The cops were out and everything. The cop took me home. My mother was so glad to see me, I didn't get a whipping. But that was it. So, then I don't know why. I could stay at the store and worked. I didn't want to work there, I was stealing cigarettes. Give them to the Shaguses in the neighborhood there, so they didn't want me around the store either. So I went over to the Exorbitant Ice Cream Company. It used to be up on 25th and 26th and Farm. I got me a box. We used to put dry ice in it with a strap you carry over your shoulder. And I went around selling ice cream bars. And I think they were a nickel. No, I don't know if they were nickel or dime, I don't remember now, but if I sold one, I think I made 2 cents on it. And I'd walk my butt off, trying to sell stupid ice cream. And sometimes you do a pretty good job, most time you didn't. You bring it back, the old Greek who ran the place was just battering the hell at you for bringing it back. And he wouldn't want to give you the money back that you paid for it. So we eat up half the profits. And then I went down on the old B News. There used to be a newspaper in town called Omaha B News. And I asked if I could sell papers. So they said, well, you got to get a corner. So I said, what about 24th and Douglas? Well, go over to 24th and Farnham, you can sell papers on that corner there. So they gave me like 12, 15 papers. Papers were 3 cents in them days. And I'm over there selling papers, and some guy comes up to me, and he's going to beat the hell out of me, but that's his corner. So I said, okay, I went over to the other corner. He was bigger than I was. And the little guy there, he was an Italian guy. He was a gnome. The guy ended up in the movies. But they found him somewhere and brought him to Hollywood, and he was in several movies. But that was his corner. Nobody was going to take that corner away from him. So I said, okay. So then I used to jump on a streetcar, sell papers on the streetcar for 2 or 3 blocks and get off. And I figured, well, this is a lot of work to make 25, 26 cents. So I didn't do that very long. Then I think the twins were working at Hires Root Beer Bottling Company. It used to be up on 24th and Cummings. So they said they'd get me a job up there. So I went up there and talked to Max Platt. But before that, I worked in the Robinson Drug Store, behind the soda fountain and the checkout counter. And I was known as the malt king. I could make malt and milks for all my friends that come in there. Jake Siller and Phil Ratner would come across the street, and Herman Bernstein, make malts for all 15 cents for a malt, about 20 cup. As long as the old man in the back wasn't watching, and we make real big, thick malts. Sell guys cigarettes, 3 packs for a dime, and all of our friends. 15 cents an hour. Work 2 hours a night, make 30 cents. See, who worked there was Benny Rifkin worked there, and Nate Schukert, and Phil, George's brother, Phil Weiss worked there, and Shimmy Cohn, Sam, you remember Shimmy? And we had a good time working there. It was get off at 11 o'clock at night, go over to Adler's. They were just baking donuts and strawberry-filled, raspberry-filled stuff. We'd buy those for a nickel a piece. I also go down to Nelson's Barbecue and get 6 hamburgers for a quarter. You can imagine what the hell the meat came from, but I guess it was meat. And I went to work for Max Platt at Hires Root Beer. And we've done every job there. We worked at feeding the bottles. Them days, every bottle went out, came back, got washed, and got filled again and capped. And we stacked cases and worked there winter. That was another 15 cents an hour. Some weeks I make $25, $30. You know how many hours we put in? Sometimes we put in 40 hours. and make $10 or $15. But it would, every dime, we needed every dime we could get. It was fun anyway, working those kind of jobs. That's where I learned to drive. Max Platt says to me one day, take the pickup truck and deliver these 3 cases of pop to some big guy's house, friend of his. You get a license? I said, sure, I can have a license. I didn't even drive a car, but I've been watching, you know, I got in and started this thing. I don't know how I learned to clutch and drive it, I don't know, but I finally did it. That's how I learned to drive. And the twins bought a 29 Model A, which I owned a third of. I paid $100 for it. I gave them $30. And we had that for about a year, I guess. And when I was, just before I left for the Army, we decided we were going to go to California, the twins and I. We took that Model A and we drove it to Los Angeles. We left here Friday night and got there Sunday morning. We drove day and night. Crazy. Blew 2 tires out. And we had a couple, 3 flat tires. We had bought a bunch of extra tubes and tires with us. But we had a good time when we were 17 years old, you know. So we stayed out there and got a job. And we were there December 7th, 1941. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Well, that night in Los Angeles was nuts. The searchlights were going on, and the anti-aircraft, coastal aircraft was firing at every cloud that went by, and they thought the Japanese were going to attack California. I don't think anybody in that town slept that night. It was a crazy time. So we hightailed it back home. When the war broke out, we didn't know what was going to happen. So that was in between the time after high school and before I went into service. I'm jumping around here. I'm trying to think of different things over the years. Now, when I was married, I had a couple of kids. Janet was born first, and she was a colic baby. A couple of times I wanted to send her back, but nobody would take her. God, she cried all night long, slept all day. And it was about 2 months before she finally got over it. Bob, he was a terrific baby. He slept all the time, never gave us any problems. I'm not saying that's a favorite, but Janet was a beauty. She never gave us a moment's trouble.
You have a lot of memories from their growing up years, Phil.
Yeah, we had a house on Benson, Northwest Drive, and like I say, the kids were great kids. They didn't give us any problems at all. And it's just like the memories went by so fast. They grew up so quick that it's kind of hard to think about it again now. But they were good kids. We had good neighbors, and they got along with everybody, and everybody got along with us. And I wasn't much of to take care of the yard, but I got it done till Bob got older and he could take it over and done the mowing. And I'm running out again. I think I better say, I don't think I better, I'm going to say a few words about my son-in-law and my daughter-in-law. I remember when Janet kind of first met Bill, I think it was an AZA or one of those kid deals that they have at the center, and she started dating Bill, and after that she didn't see anybody else. And I used to say to her, why don't you date some other guys? She says, there's nobody else I want to date. He's the best. I said, well, I have to be proven that. So That guy come over and have dinner with us, and whatever's left, he'd finish up. And he had fingerprints on my refrigerator that you couldn't get off. And first thing I knew, they were married. And it's been a great marriage here, wonderful kids. And Bill is couldn't ask for a nicer son-in-law. He's more like a son than he is a son-in-law. And we love him dearly. They had a couple of kids too that are outstanding. Steffi and Jason. Jason today is a big operator in the advertising business. He's with Ogilvy and Company now. And they represent the Mattel toy lines. And he seems to be very happy what he's doing. Got a girlfriend. We've met her. She's real cute. He leads a busy life. And Steph, she's even busier. She's married to Ray Jansen, who's a great kid. And they had 2 or 3 years of 4 years or 5 years of single blissness. I mean, not single, but not having any children. But they decided to have a family. You know, they had a family, had triplets, 2 boys and a girl. My, oh my, imagine that. And looking back, us Belzers, we had a cousin that had triplets. Sophie's daughter, Slotkin, had triplets 50 years ago. 3 beautiful girls. And I haven't kept track of them, but I imagine they're still beautiful girls. But these triplets of Steffi, they were born prematurely and they spent a lot of time in the hospital, but they're home now. They're doing great. They're wonderful kids. My son Bob married a girl named Judy, who happens to be a Missouri graduate. That's the one thing I got against her. She can't stand their big red, can't stand the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Whenever they play each other, it's like you had your teeth pulled. But I'm just kidding. She's still a great fan of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They had three wonderful kids too. Matthew and Emily and Stacy, great kids. They love their grandpa. I love them. I don't have any more kids that I know of, because I can't say anything about it. So that's my progeny, and I wish them all a long life.
Phil, is there anything that you'd like to say to your children and your grandchildren?
Well, I'd like to say a little first about, after my wife died, I had several years of being alone. And then I started seeing Eva Meyerson, who's Harold Stoner's sister. And it led to marriage, and I've been very happy. It's worked out wonderful. She puts up with me. And it's hard to say what really was in my heart, except I'm glad to still be here, and I'm glad to have all my family, all my cousins, and all my children, and all my friends, everybody that I've known all my life. It's been a great life. I hope I have a few more years to enjoy it some more. And I think that God's been good to me. And I appreciate that. I don't know. I really want to cap it by saying I love you all.